So this video, I'm going to talk about some experiences I did not have directly, but some of my coworkers had. So my company, one of their divisions does pest elimination. So they spray for bugs, they trap rodents, all that fun stuff. So my job, personally, I observe how people do their work. So I've done what we call some ride-alongs with our pest folks at night down in the Chicago Loop in downtown Chicago, River North District, the entertainment district, where all the restaurants are. So you don't want to spray or trap rodents while people are in your restaurant. So we go at night. So usually around 12:30 to about 4 in the morning. So I've not personally, like I said, had experiences myself, but this is what I've been told over the last 10 years while doing these ride-alongs. So there's three locations in particular that I've been talked about or told about. First one's actually out here in my town, out in the western suburbs, not even 2 miles from my house. And it was a burger chain. And I forget the name of it. I keep calling it Bert and Ernie's, but it was, I think, Ernie's and somebody's. Anyway, it was a burger chain, small one. Unfortunately, didn't last but a few years. But anyway, they were one of our customers. So our employees would go in at night once the place is locked. And pretty quickly they noticed a few things. So the tale they were told was the account is that yes, someone had died in that space. Apparently, it was an employee, younger employee, who was going up into the ceiling, up above the ceiling into the storage space to get some items and set up a ladder and went up the ladder up into the ceiling. Well, apparently, she did not place the ladder safely, and it either slid or fell as she tried to come back down out of the space onto the ladder. Ladder slipped and fell, and she unfortunately fell to the floor and broke her neck and died. So the accounts of our employees going in there include things like ladders sliding across the floor. So this spirit, if she's still there, does not like ladders for obvious reasons. And so apparently we'll move the ladder. And I'm not talking about a couple inches. They say then the ladder will slide like 5 or 6 feet across the floor by itself. So that became a very unpopular location for our employees to visit at night. It's since closed. It's now a cannabis dispensary. So I'm not going in there now. I was in there once when it was a burger joint, but I haven't been in at night. So I don't know if I'll get in there or not. The other locations are downtown, River North District, which is the restaurant district, entertainment district north of the Chicago River. And there are two locations in particular our employees do not like. One of them being Pizzeria Uno. Uh, Fun fact, most of the restaurants in the north end of Chicago, there, River North, were mansions. So back in the Gilded Age, 1880s, 90s, 1900s, that is where the millionaires built their mansions. So since then, they've all since moved up the coast, up the lake, north of Chicago, but their mansions have now mostly been turned into restaurants. So Lowry's was one of them, but also Pizzeria Uno and Pizzeria Due are old mansions. So Pizzeria Uno, there were several accounts from our employees of things, sliding around, lights swinging, flashing, noises, banging, a couple things like that. So fortunately, I got to do a ride along to Pizzeria Uno with them at night. Unfortunately, it was only to check the rodent traps on the roof of the building next to the air handling equipment in February at 1 in the morning. So I have not been in the restaurant with them at night yet. I keep telling them I'd like to go to these locations, but so far hasn't worked. Anyway, the big location that they do not like going into, and I see that it closed in January, so I'm just going to say it's Rock Bottom Brewery down there. I think it's on Ohio Street, but the place is notoriously haunted, apparently. So they closed suddenly in January. They gave no reason. They just said we have to close. Period. So we don't know if it was financial, death in the family, corporate, or just the hauntings. Who knows? But they closed. So hopefully something else will open up in there so we can get in at night. At least one ride along, we were supposed to visit there when I was with them. And of course, it got canceled at the last second. But anyway, this place, our employees actually argue over who has to go service this account. So they almost always send the newbies in first because the more experienced employees know the deal and they don't want to go there. So typically, they told me they would go in, 12:30, 1 in the morning. The manager would be there. And as soon as they arrived, he would throw them the keys, say, door's locked up. Okay, I'm out of here. Boom. And then run out the front door and leave them to the restaurant. So pretty quickly, the stories started to accumulate. Apparently, pendants would swing over random tables, the light pendants would swing. One of our employees saw a beer mug slide down the bar 4 to 5 feet by itself. But the ultimate experience in this space is that the elevator, apparently there is an elevator, goes down to the basement level, I believe, and then I think there's a second floor it goes up to as well. Anyway, they will be in the restaurant checking traps, checking the kitchen, checking the seating area, and they will hear a ding, and then they hear the elevator come up from the basement, stops, first floor, doors open up, and of course there's no one in the elevator. So apparently it sits there 4 or 5 minutes, doors close, ding, and then it goes back down to the basement level again. So that's a little unsettling for most people. So our folks don't like to stick around there. They had an experience where there was a new manager once. They showed up, it was a brand new manager. They said, "Oh, yeah, fine, I'll be in the office, don't worry." So he let them go about doing their business. And they got to talking and said, "Have you experienced anything?" He's like, "I don't believe any of that stuff. That's a bunch of nonsense. I don't believe that. That doesn't scare me." So they came back a month later, and that same manager was there at the door waiting for them to arrive. And they get in. He says, here's the keys. I'm out of here," and then runs out. Wouldn't say why. So apparently he probably experienced some of the activity as well. So apparently it's a pretty active place. So I don't know if I will get in there or not. Hopefully, someone else will purchase the space and open it up, and we'll be able to service that account again. But those are just some interesting stories from Chicago. So if you've been to any of those places, leave a comment. If you're coming to Chicago, see if you can visit a couple of those, at least Pizzeria Uno, and see if you have any experiences in there, preferably closer to the evening hours. But those are my experiences here amongst our coworkers. Oh, one more. One of our plants is closer to O'Hare, and apparently there's an office space. It's a manufacturing facility, but there's a pretty big office space attached to it. And there's a second floor that's not really used. Part of the reason why being, supposedly there's a woman that haunts the second floor office space. And I've been in that plant dozens of times. I've gone upstairs myself to try to, fish this ghost out, and I've not had anyone or anything communicate with me. But there are older employees who say, yeah, there's someone who wanders the upstairs office space, which is why it was not remodeled when they just remodeled the office spaces in the last year. Second floor was not touched. So anyway, we'll see if I ever see anything in that building. But Chicago has a lot of activity. So if you get out here, check it out.